All right, we are going to get started. And for those of you out there, I want to let you know on Facebook, on any live streams, put your comments. And after, later this evening, because I'm not going to be able to respond live if you have any questions or comments, this is interactive. So please share them. We would love to see your comments or your questions. And later this evening, we will respond to them. I was reminded that I may not have said that previously. So we're going to get started, and here we go. We're going to get centered and balanced in spirit, take just a few brief moments, and then we'll get started in lesson 7. So we're just going to take a few moments here to continue to get centered and calm and relaxed so that we can be in a receptive mood. I always like to start off with, there is nothing to hate. I forgive everyone and everything, including myself. I am friends with everyone and everything. And I love everyone and everything. Now we know the I that speaks is the universal divine consciousness. For truly, divine I loves everyone and everything, forgives everyone and everything, is friends with everyone and everything, and knows there is nothing to hate. There is only love. So as we absorb that truth, we begin lesson 7. And here, lesson 7 is where we step into the teaching of the healing. So lesson 7 is our heredity and healing. So here is where we come into this. Welcome, sister, welcome. We've got a handout over there, if not that the all-knowing needs one, and some water. Hello, hello. And so we begin lesson 7. We have some water over there if you want water, and also a one-sheet handout if you're interested. And please feel free to sit close. And so as we start with lesson 7, once again, our heredity and healing. So today, by the end, we will have solid step-by-step tools that we can use in the actual healing, right? Because this is called 12 lessons in spiritual living and healing. And so it's important that we get to the healing portion of these lessons. And so I will read a brief, very brief few sentences. God is the only creator, the source of all true being, and man, his child, is made in his image and likeness. Therefore, we are spirit, since God is spirit, and our Father and Mother is God. Our one parent is the Holy One, who is perfect life and health, pure loving and all wise. So this is what we'll cover as our true heredity, is that we have been born of spirit, not of flesh and blood. And I think it's important for those who may be watching, streaming, and for those of us here that we really quick touch on lessons 1 through 6 very briefly. Because they set the groundwork, they set the foundation for us in what we're doing. So lesson 1, the first principle is God is good, and God is omnipresent. So the God that we speak of is not necessarily, it's not the one that we may have a picture of in our mind, because truly a closer idea of God is no image at all. So if your image of God is no image, you are closer to your understanding of the true God beyond God than one with an image. So God is all in all. As simple stated, God is omnipresent, and God is all in all. Brother, we have some water and a handout, and we would, if you're comfortable, if you came and sat closer. Yeah. So that's lesson 1. Lesson 2, we say the real and the unreal. The bottom line, lesson 2 is there is nothing to fear. There is only one power, and that power is omnipresent good, or God. And one of the statements that I like to say after that is, I am fearless. So there's nothing to fear. There's only one power. It is good. And so I am fearless. Lesson 3, words and their use. So God is supreme intelligence, wisdom, understanding, reason, all of which can be comprehended in one word, mind. And so God is divine mind, and we are like our Creator, our Father, our Mother, our God. All of these, once again, are labels and descriptions to try to speak about the Tao, as some would say, the Tao. And so God is the great first cause, and therefore mind is great first cause. So divine mind is the one creative power and source of all true manifestations. Lesson 4, God is faith. So true faith is a firm, persistent, determined belief in almighty good, changeless, deathless, substantial spirit. Once again, as the all in all, the substance of everything that you desire is faith. And faith is confidence. Faith is firm standing in the unity and the allness of omnipresent deity. And so once again, as we said, the first principle is truly a golden thread throughout all lessons, all principles. And God is faith. And we've said this before, that some people are seeking and looking for faith, have told themselves that they've lost faith, but their faith is with them. God is faith, and they are the faith of God. And so knowing that truth is wonderful. Lesson 5, knowledge and wisdom. So God is omnipotent, all-knowing, all-intelligence, all-wisdom, good judgment, the inspiration and understanding. It's wisdom, ideas flowing from divine mind to God's children, which is us. We are divine nature, unfolding divine character here and now. Lesson 6, unity and concentration. Perfect concentration is having the single eye spoken of by Jesus. If thine eye be single, thy whole body shall be full of light. That's Matthew 6:22. Does anyone have any comments or input? This is very interactive, by the way, for anyone who has blessed us with their grace today. And so, we have this streaming on Facebook as well. So folks will be watching and ringing in. And so your input and comments is really appreciated, not just for me, but for those out there who may be listening and watching. So lesson 7, once again, our heredity and healing. So should I read that heading again one more time? Has anyone got that? That really we step in, this is so important, right? Because not only has the world taught us, we come into the world, and at some point, different stages for different folks, we look up to what our parents, and we're told we're born and that we're flesh and blood and we're in a material realm, and this is the way it is. And so really what the sages of the ages have taught, what Jesus Christ has taught, what all of them have taught, is that we are spiritual beings, and that our consciousness, divine consciousness and awareness, has sprung forth from the eternal God, divine mind, from the omnipresent presence. This is where we reside, right? We're made in the image and likeness. We've used the analogy or idea that like we have imagination. So since we are familiar with some of the experiences that we have, that we can have dreams, and within our dreams, we can have entire worlds and people and places. And so like a dream, so it is with a way that you can understand our existence, that God has imaged us, imagined us, thought us within himself, herself, as individual sons of God. And for those of you watching for the first time, you're going to hear me say his or her, mother, father, deity, God. It's so important that we don't get caught up on labels that may bother us if you're hearing it for the first time, or if you're used to hearing God labeled a different way. So it's just important to me, at least, that we're aware of that, and that we rise above, right? As students, as adepts, as children of light, we are rising above thoughts and emotions that disturb us with certain words. And that's mostly not for you guys here, because you guys know that, but that's for those of you who may be watching. So does anyone have any questions in regards to this idea, this what is called a truth, that we have been born of spirit? Yes.
Well, talk more about the fact that we're one, and we're one in spirit, and yet you said God created us as individuals, and yet he created one son, and we're all it. And talk more about the oneness and individuality.
Sure, and something that for some folks who will hear this, right, there are different folks, and we've said this too, and I appreciate that, Sister Uma, there are different folks at different stages of unfolding. And so, God is one, and that's why we set up in the beginning, God is omnipresent, the only omnipresent, eternal life, intelligence. We can run down this. There is only one life, one intelligence, one. And that oneness, even though there is this singular unity that exists as this one, all in all, within the one, we have sprung forth, and we're going to get to that we have been as individual souls in this experience that we call life. Even though we're individualized souls, we are one with the all. There is no separation from the all, right? There's nothing else but God, and so it's impossible to be separate from God. We have this perception or experience of separation, but it is not true. And that is when we covered a lot of this in lesson 2, and really throughout the whole lessons, that although we be individualized expressions of the one, we are one with the one, the same soil of the one. We are one with Brahman. We are one. These are all other names that have been used, but it's impossible to be separate from. And so even in our experience of individuality, We are one. And Uma, would you like to expand upon that?
Oh, I was just noticing you said God created us as individuals. Anyhow, the oneness of ourselves is a very fascinating thing. Because they say God created one son, and here we are.
The uniqueness of ourselves.
Well, the uniqueness comes about from you being over there and me being over here in the illusion. But inside, where is one son? It's us. And it's I guess that's the basic paradox of existence. They say in the course, they say there's one son, all of us, and there's only actually one ego. We each have a part of the ego.
Yes.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, and depending, right, because we're at different stages, each one of us here, even if it be imagined or it be illusion or Maya, that we're at these different stages of unfolding in this experience that we're calling our life here in this plain planet Earth. Even in that, as the whole point of self-realization is self-realizing the self as the one self. And am I saying, that you are God Almighty on one hand? That's ridiculous for someone to hear that, and they're not ready for that. On the other hand, they're very comfortable and can accept on their path that they are children of God and they have been created, although your creation has been from eternity. And we will start discussing that a little more, and that self-realization of being here and existing, and because we've been given this freedom in our own consciousness within divine consciousness, in connectivity with that, we get to create our own experiences. And that's, as we know, what we're doing in these lessons, that we are creating this individual experience, even being one with the all. Yes? Oh, it's not.
Yogananda liked to say, don't say I am God, say I am one with God.
Yes. Yes, because they would even say, you're crazy to say that I am God. And in a way, it is crazy. It is crazy. But we can say that if God was divine consciousness ocean, that we are the ocean still, even if we're waves rising and bubbles rising. There's no separating the waves and bubbles from the ocean. So that gives us this understanding of that oneness with still having the unique divine nature and divine character that we're all, realizing within ourselves as the Son, as the one Son. And it is a beautiful thing. It is a beautiful thing. And that unity and that knowing that we're never apart from, right? It's one of the greatest healings for me, because for my path, my experience, there was a time when I believed that God was this creator being who was outside of the earth, right? That's how I pictured it. God was outside of earth, created earth.
With binoculars.
Yes, absolutely, with binoculars. I love it. And he created it, and he's apart from us, and we're separate. And it was mind-blowing in such a wonderful way to get the omnipresent God understanding that all that is God. And even using the term mind and divine mind, I think it's a great way for us to communicate the idea, but it's so much more magical and mystical and powerful beyond that. But it's a great way for that understanding. And that alone, knowing that I dwelleth in the all right here, right now, is healing.
I'm sorry, I'm going to have to be going. I had a prior engagement. I didn't know what the exact time was for this.
Okay, that's all right. Well, and we hope to spend time with you.
Thank you.
Yeah. And so one is heredity, and we will talk, I guess, since we're talking about this. So the first realization that one would pass from death unto life, from disease to wholeness, must have is truth about our real parentage, our inheritance, and our generation. God is the one creator, the source of all true being, and man, his child, is made in his image and likeness. Therefore, we are spirit, since God is spirit, and our father and mother is God. Our one parent is the Holy One, who is perfect life, health, pure loving, and all wise. So, again, now we understand that part of the heredity idea, and where most people are clinging to sicknesses and ideas of disease, is because they believe, hey, my grandma had this, my parents had that, they are hurting there, oh, they had whatever, and so I'm gonna possibly have whatever. And what is that creating? One, especially if one isn't even experiencing things, but they're looking towards a future that doesn't exist within the past, right? This is such a wonderful paradox, looking to the future of what doesn't exist about a past that is in a mother or father or some relative who has had something that we would call disease or disease. And then the fact is, knowing this truth, and if we stick to this truth, is that no, I cannot inherit this or that from them, good or not good, because I was never born of flesh. And this is radical, possibly. It's really not radical, but it is definitely a different thought and teaching than what the world has taught us. I mean, the world is all about teaching us about your flesh and you inherit this and that, even our looks and stuff. But there are actually children who are adopted, just for you to have some food for thought, is there are children who are adopted into families, and they're adopted from babies, and they look just like, you say, hey, that's your kid, right? And if you were to find out they were adopted, you wouldn't believe it, because they look so much like the parents. And because as we know, from the power of our thoughts and our words and our associations and imaging within ourselves, all of this experience is happening from our thoughts. And so, that's really interesting to me, that we can see that they're adopted yet. And let me tell you something else. I happen to know adopted children who have picked up the same quote unquote heredity of disease. I don't like talking about it, but I'm going to say this, that I'm actually aware of adopted children taking on the same diseases that their non-quote unquote maternal parents have, or in their history have. And so that too, you have to, when you analyze that, you have to wonder. Of course, I don't wonder, I know now, but you would have to wonder and say, how does that happen? How can that happen? And it's the power of thought, the power of perception. So it is freeing and severs the tie of the flesh and heredity of inheriting the not good. Now, if there are wonderful attributes and loving things about your earthly parents, there's nothing wrong with assuming those. No one would say there's anything wrong that, my father was the kindest man I ever knew. Or my mother was the most loving person I ever knew. This is wonderful. There's nothing wrong with that. And in fact, the teaching says to know this truth doesn't mean you go start treating your parents like crap. It actually means even more knowing this truth, that we honor them, because they as well are these children of God. And we should love them and respect them and honor them. And that would happen naturally. Does anyone have any comments, input about that?
You had me worried for a minute with the title. I thought you were going to tell us we were beholden to our genetics. and thank God you were going to talk about the divine inheritance.
Awesome. So this is powerful. I mean, this is something that we have to remind ourselves about, right? In our practice, that I am born of spirit. Your consciousness, your life, and just putting it in another way, Even when by appearance we seem to be born, right? Some of you may say, well, my experience has been that I've had kids and I've seen the appearance process that, my wife and I came together and we created a child. And not to take away from your experience and your love, but the truth is a man hasn't created anything. And that life was already created by God. Life is God and given from God. And so, if anything, you can consider ourselves conduits. But the truth is that life is consciousness and awareness, and that is not something that is born of flesh. That even if you were to try to analyze a material creation. Hopefully I'm not losing you guys or getting too off, which I hope not. If you have any questions out there online, make sure to ask them. This might be the first time you're hearing this stuff, these teachings, and we want to hear from you. So should we continue on heredity right now, or should we move on to some other portions? So there's another. I guess we can talk about the 3 methods of healing. In fact, I was supposed to start there, and I kind of jumped right into that we're spiritual DNA instead of material DNA. Well, I do want to say this. So it's important, as we know that we are consciousness and awareness and this divine consciousness in mind, we can start speaking to the appearance of this form and start speaking the truth to it. And speaking the truth sets us free. Knowing the truth sets us free. So speaking the truth and thinking the truth sets us free. So we can start speaking to this form, even if in the beginning it is speaking to your hands, whatever may be bothering you, your eyes, your ears, your legs, whatever it is in your appearance, you can actually start speaking the truth to yourself silently or audibly and saying, I am spiritual being. I was never born of flesh. I am born of spirit. And since I was born of spirit, I have inherited the goodness from omnipresent God. And there is no sickness, there is no sin, and there is no death. That's another thing. So I'm going to continue on this. Another important thing to remember is that we have not inherited sin. Not even the sin that you've heard of from Adam and Eve, unless you choose to. And so in this wonderful existence, we do appear to have a choice. And we have a choice. You can be material, fleshly, and you can do that. And you can accept all that stuff because we know the cosmic law, as a man believeth, so it is. And every sage of the age said that. And so let us believe and know the truth that we are cosmic consciousness, that we are divine beings, and that we speak unto the members of our universe of us and tell them that I am in control here. I love you. Thank you. And, I'm expecting wonderful behavior from every part of me, backs and necks and eyes and ears. And there's even, as we've spoken about before, where we've talked about meditation and seeing light surrounding us and emanating from us, we can also know that the cosmic life of God, of omnipresent God, is flowing through us and visualizing the energy of life and power flowing through our mind, our back of our necks. And we'll talk about this later, but 12 powers, 12 lessons, 12 disciples. Some of our sages of the ages, even more recent, like the Fillmores and Emma Curtis Hopkins and the Rick sisters, the disciples' names, Philip, Andrew, I think, was strength, and Bartholomew is imagination. And these 12 disciples, and each one of us has 12 disciples, 12 powers, that when we step into our Christ consciousness, we're activating these powers. The Hindu sages, of course, you've heard chakras and these things, and they're very much in alignment with that, with those teachings. But Christ, for me, of course, being the master demonstrator and teacher and leading us a plan and a path, I really, really personally appreciate those teachings. So it'll be something I'll share with you guys maybe and bring you a handout, because it is really interesting to focus, your energy, God energy, flowing through the parts of your form, and really to helping you to be energized and feel good and to heal those things that you need
nice
healing.
one the other day in an old metaphysic healing book. So the truth includes all aspects, including light, love, wholeness, and peace. And this particular page suggested applying peace to each of your parts. So my nervous system is at peace as I'm driving down the street. My
Yeah.
joints are at peace. My musculature is at peace. My bones are at peace. And it's just very beautiful. So there's a million
I like
ways to
that.
apply these.
Yes.
Is that your phone? Someone calling?
No one's calling. Just little bells playing in the background. No, it is beautiful. And that's exactly what I am speaking of. And that is why universal consciousness is speaking through all of us. We just have to be aware of that, right? Remind ourselves during the day. Let there be a symbol. I also encourage you to find something that you see daily in your life that comes into your awareness, into your experience, and try to associate some of these teachings, some of these things, so that it could be a little spark, a little symbol of remembrance to then practice in your daily life. And no one needs to know that we're doing it, right? It's not something that we throw out in the middle of somewhere and start doing something. It's all happening in our consciousness while we're doing whatever we're doing that day, and in a way we're treating ourselves. So I want to move on, and we're going to bounce around because that's what I do, to the 3 methods of healing. So Annie laid out 3 methods. Emma Curtis Hopkins, all of these early New Thought founders, and really it goes back to Mary Baker Eddy, it goes back to blah, 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 but it goes back to Jesus Christ, right? And one is argumentative. So the argumentative method is a kind of silent teaching by which false impressions and errors are erased from the mind, and we're speaking mortal mind, carnal mind, which is our self-ego when we're not letting go and allowing the oneness that is to shine through. And so...
Example, a woman who used to come to this church, she's nailing the nail, hits her thumb, whack! She screams, no! Nothing ever transpired. She just argued it out of existence in 1 second.
And those are remembrances, right? So next time one of you guys or gals are doing something and pop your finger, and it just happened to me in the cottage. I was closing tables and I went, whoa, and I said, no. And the pain went away. Now I will say that there was a little teeny bruise on my finger. I had no pain, but the bruise was there, I'm convinced, because I still thought, man, I did hit my finger pretty hard. And so I brought into my remembrance of that quick ow, and it was still there. And then the pain wasn't there, but...
So when you say no, you're saying no, you don't exist? No, that didn't happen?
Or no, you are in control of your emotions, pain, senses. Really, we'll say senses, right? It's not the body that tells you what hurts or doesn't hurt. Your consciousness is in control of senses. And so the fact is, since you're not body, right, and you are consciousness, maybe the body was touched and felt a pressure, or we can say whatever you want, but the bottom line is that your consciousness is in control of your senses.
Well, it's kind of like we're creating this movie as we go along scene by scene. There's a cut, take that, no, cut, move that one, yeah.
Yes.
Correct, on the cutting room floor.
Yeah, because...
And then there's this other weird thing they used to, it showed up in a number of teachings. Okay, let's say you burnt your hand on a lamp bulb. You touched the light bulb, it was hot. So your fingers are burning. So you wait till the light bulb cools, and then you touch it a bunch of times, telling yourself, see, it doesn't hurt. And I've seen people stop bleeding, cutting themselves while doing a salad, and then they just like take the knife really close, because there's, they call it your ka body.
Subtle body.
They call it ka, this is a Hawaiian thing, they call it the ka. The ka, you can prove to the ka that bringing a knife close to your finger doesn't cause any problems. See. And then it'll it'll cut the seam that it didn't want, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All sorts of ways to trick yourself into the
Yeah, and tricking or speaking that truth. A true thing, there you go. And I shared an example with you guys, I'm pretty sure, when I got hit by the car. Did I share that with you guys?
No.
Oh, well. Then I will. So I was 17 and I worked for Lucky's grocery store. And I was a courtesy clerk. Those were baggers back then. And back then, we used to be able to chase shoplifters, right? There, you actually were allowed. So shoplifters came to the store. Us young, baggers were all excited. They'd say 69 out the door or something over the loudspeaker, and we knew that was a shoplifter. And so we would bolt out after there and chase these shoplifters and get our product back. And I will even say that if it came down to where they tried to fight you, you were actually allowed to fight back.
Wow.
And so you can only, no way. Matter of fact, because of my incident, which we'll get to, is why at least Lucky's stores initiated a nationwide policy of no more chasing shoplifters. So I'm to thank for that one. And so someone stole some stuff, and I shot out the front doors, and I'm running through the parking lot, and all the cars are parked sideways in the parking lot. And as I was running, I ran between some cars, and I jumped out, I just jumped out. But in midair, the voice in my head said, "You're going to get hit by a car." And I turned in midair, and a big car just whacked me, hit me dead on. My tibias and fibias ripped out of my legs. By the time the car stopped, it was up to my shoulders. My head had hit the pavement so hard, I was convinced that my brains were splattered, and I was going out. So I tried to push myself really quick, and I couldn't feel my legs coming, and I was in tremendous pain, and thought my brains were on the pavement, and my whole life flashed before me. When they say your life flashes before you, and for me, it was everyone that I loved. I was even dating my girlfriend at the time, who's my wife now. I was even dating her at the time. And when they say your life flashes before you, my experience was that everyone I loved and knew that I had an immediate connection to, I was so sad that I wasn't going to be able to say goodbye. And I was going out, that I wouldn't be able to say nothing to them. And then I everyone's standing around me from the store saying, "Hold on, Danny, hold on, the ambulance is coming." And I said, "No, I'm dying. And I kept saying that, and I was numbing out. The whole scene was going, and I was dying. And then some lady, I heard her say, "Do you want me to pray for you? Do you want me to pray for you?" And I'm like, yes. And she grabs my hand, and there I am, I'm fading out going. But as soon as she grabbed my hand, I never saw her, grabbed my hand and started saying the Our Father prayer, "Our Father who art in heaven." And immediately, I can only say like a movie, it's just like what it felt like and happened. It was like magical. As soon as the Our Father prayer initiated, I had an instant, took in the big deep breath, looked up in the sky. I had no pain. I was zero pain, 100%. I wasn't out of, quote unquote, out of my body, although we know now that we're out of our bodies. But I was in pure bliss, still laid out, looking up at the sky, having a knowing beyond even, that's so hard to describe, that God was with me. I didn't see any images. I just saw a beautiful sky, but I knew that God was with me, and I had no pain. Next thing you know, ambulances are showing up. They're ripping my clothes off, shooting me. Well, I don't even know if they shot me with morphine in my legs yet, but so then they're going, your legs are whatever. But I was 100% in no pain. They get me to the hospital, and they got me there, and they're kind of tripping that you're not in any, I'm in no pain. I said, can I call my girlfriend? So I was totally with it. After that prayer, here I am dying, and right after that prayer, Yeah, I am just perfect, except for my legs are still broken. They're still, kind of hanging separate from me. I think they had me, obviously in some kind of thingy. But yeah, the nurse actually, I'm going into surgery. They had me in the waiting room to go into surgery. And the nurse goes, "Are you serious? You want to call?" I said, "Yeah, can you please call my girlfriend?" She dials, give her the number, she dials, and I got the phone. I go, hey, babe, I'm in the hospital right now. I got hit by a car. Both my legs and bones are ripped out of my legs, and I'm going into surgery right now. And what'd you say?
I said, yeah, right.
She's like, "Yeah, right. Quit lying. What are you saying?" And I said, "I can't talk. I'm going to the surgery. Here's the nurse." And handed the phone to the nurse. And, of course, she verified, and I went into surgery, and I was in a full-length cast for quite some time. But the point is, and that's something that I reflect on, that I experienced personally in the midst of tibias and fibias snapped and, ripped out of my legs, and my head apparently wasn't bleeding everywhere, but I'll tell you, it smacked hard. There was no pain, none. There was tremendous pain until that prayer happened. And so I've experienced that disconnecting from the senses. So it is real. I mean, there's only really two ways to convince anyone of anything. And one is by you trusting someone's testimony, and the other is self-experience. That's really the only way to truly, prove something to someone. And so I stand here as a witness that it has happened for me. And so I know it's achievable. And it was the magic words for me, right? We all, and I've said this before, there is I'll say magic, a special word, a word that exists for all of us in so many different ways, but is that creative power word we're waiting to hear to help us transcend, the material while still being here, That's another thing too is like Uma said, and like many of the sages of the ages have said, this is a movie, and it's a great mystery, this life and this experience, and one could, we could talk for hours about why, but really looking at it as your own personal movie, that you're creating and participating in. But then once we're aware that we're the director, you can kind of make some different script writing. But we can step out of the pain. So I know it's possible. I experienced it. The magic word for me happened to be the Our Father prayer. That was something, that prayer, and I know why, because as a little boy, my grandmother, that's the prayer she taught me. And my grandmother, still to this day, God bless her, she's still alive. Every morning I'd wake up, she'd have a Bible opened up and she would be weeping. I'd go there 6 a.m, get some bread, and she's just reading the Bible and weeping. I go, "Grandma, what's wrong?" "Oh, I'm just praying for everyone." And she taught us the Our Father prayer. And so that was the magic word for me. That was the prayer that just did it. And like I said, I'm not claiming that I saw this and that, but man, the knowing and the no pain was so special. And something that, memory suits us well for some things. Our memory, it's okay to forget a whole lot of stuff. But also, obviously, there is good in this life experience in our memories too. And so it's amazing.
Now, when I tell people, "Oh, this guy, fractured his vertebrae, and you put him back together with his mind," and I went, "Well, yeah, but that was him." So people tend not to get that we can all do this.
Yes. Yeah, all can heal. All. Not just ourselves, but we can heal others. And so I guess, because I told the story, so one is argumentative, to where we can reason, right? And reasoning is saying, "Look, man, there's a sun up in the sky. We're on a planet spinning through space and time from appearance, and from what even science tells you, there's something bigger and more amazing going on here. Let's first get to there. Now let me tell you that we are the universe. We are conscious, and we just reason, and step by step get to this knowing of truth and realization that it ain't just the story we've been told by a system or our parents or the world. And not that we blame or are mad or upset at anyone about it, because we're each individuals at the right time coming here or doing our personal unfolding in our quest for what we call truth, for what is the truth. And so I just want to make sure that, and I do it, I told you guys before, the sun is one of my symbols. You know, I see that shining, beautiful, electric sun, and I'm just like, man. And not to focus too much on the sun to, make it my deity. That's not what I'm doing. But I do know that it is one with God too. That it is one with God as like, boom, here I am. No matter if the clouds are there, that sun is still shining. It never sets. By appearance, it seems to set. By appearance, the sky is blue. But we know those aren't true. And so there is a higher power. And that is that first step, even saying to yourself, reasoning with yourself, arguing with yourself that there is a higher power. And once we get there, once we can say, yeah, clearly, from what I can see, there's no strings, there's no erector sets, there's no man or a turtle holding what we call the earth in the limitless that we call space. There's a reasoning and argumentative that we get with ourselves to then start talking about God being omnipresent. And the next is intuitive. So the intuitive method is used by those who realize the inner guide, their impressionable nature, and listen to the truth within themselves. By the intuition, the healer knows just what expressions of truth will reach the case. And so we've spoken about intuition already, and wisdom. That's our direct connection with divine consciousness. That's our opening up and letting go of the personal I, and knowing that it is not me, the form, that is doing anything, but I am made myself a temple of the living God. I have opened myself receptive to actually God consciousness flowing through me and realizing that I am one with, that is doing the work intuitively. And so divine consciousness giving us information that we wouldn't otherwise know. It wasn't a book you read. It wasn't anything about any one of us that when we're sitting with someone, because people are going to start coming to you. They're already coming to you. I already know that this is happening, right? There's a whole bunch of stuff happening in the invisible of people speaking to us. We're speaking to people. People are catching, glimpses of something different about you. They may not even know anything about what you're doing, but they may come to you with their ailments, the things that they want healed, even from the conscious waking state, not knowing that their subconscious or their soul knows why they're coming to you, because you're more unfolded than they are, and that you've actually been preparing and practicing these tools to be of help to them and also to yourself. So there is the intuitive, and then there's spiritual perception. So no argument is used, and often no word is spoken, either silently or audibly. The healer simply knows, and his knowing becomes manifest. There is a flash of realization or a deep, still consciousness, indescribable with words, that this one is now perfectly well and whole. And this very cognition is like a great light that instantly destroys the error, called the disease. And immediately the healing is done. This was the principal method used by Jesus Christ. If we look into the secret causes of successes, so that was the method of Jesus Christ, right? For him, he was so one with the Father, God, deity, that he didn't need to argue with anybody. And it wasn't even intuitive to where then, because I don't know if I said this, but within the intuitive, within your intuition, you're having silent treatments. And what are the treatments? Do you guys know what the treatments are? It is speaking the truth, right? For some people, they go, what do you mean just by thinking and speaking these universal truths? Well, the truth sets us free. And so intuitively, when we're doing intuitive and argumentative, right, we're speaking either audibly, I'm sharing with you the higher power and what we just went through a moment ago, or I'm even sharing it with you silently. that we don't have to speak. And in fact, we don't even need to hear what anyone's problem is. Now, in most likelihood, someone is probably going to share with you what's bothering them. And so this is fine. But there's no need for you to draw it out. When did it first happen? How did it start happening? None of those things are required in your process of healing and the healing tools. And in most cases, it's probably best not to, because right as we speak about evil or we speak about disease, we give it power, or they may be given it power. So there's no need to. But we are so powerful that none of that really matters on one hand too, once you're ready. So let us not get caught up with that either.
I have a funny example. There's this Russian doctor, and he knew how the human body worked perfectly. And people would come with a complaint, and while he heard the complaint, he'd be knowing the perfection of the systems. They'd be healed right there in his diagnosis room. So the Russian government is no dummy, so they changed him from doctors to psychics. And I met him south of San Jose. And he sat in front of the room and he just listed all of the systems of the body, and people were getting, freedom. It was his view of the perfection.
Yes. And like Uma said earlier as well, I forget the guy's name now, but the gentleman that she spoke about who healed the back, one of his processes for himself in his healing was that he learned the entire makeup of a perfect spine and back.
Well, he already had a chiropractic degree.
Well, so he had
Happened to have just become a chiropractor when he got run over by SUV.
And so then he was visualizing. One of the process for him was visualizing, and it took him a long, time, very short time in the grand scheme of things, but it took him a while before he could hold in his mind that perfect picture of what his back should look like, healed and perfect. And he continued to hold that in his consciousness and his awareness. And when they said he would never walk again and blah, 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 he proved them wrong because he refused to believe that as a truth for him. And he used these tools to heal himself. And so
And that was in the 80s, and he's still talking and teaching, so
Yes.
So I have a personal example, similar actually, but it's simpler. I've twisted my ankle, sprained it, or something like that, or hurt my knee, or hurt my shoulder. Each time I move it and think about the way it used to feel, the way it's supposed to feel, not the way it hurts now, but the way it used to feel.
Right.
And I would just work my joint thinking of those things, and it would get better.
Yes.
It really would.
Yep.
And that was my cure.
Right.
And that's, now I know why it worked.
Yes. It's beautiful. It's beautiful to step into this knowing, this and provable. That's the one thing we keep saying to ourselves and to those who are hearing it the first time or the 20th, 1000th time, is that it is in fact provable. That we will demonstrate. It all comes down to, are you ready? Are you ready to jump off the fake cliff, right? The fake ledge into receptivity of this universal truth. And we prove it. We're not saying jump off any cliffs, by the way. It's a mental one we're talking about.
I remember Saturday or Sunday, the speaker here was talking about how consciousness, that's what we're talking about, consciousness of our spirit, has the part where your subconscious knows all this stuff about what's going on with you, and your ego or your conscious mind that you think is your mind is blocking it from the superconscious, which is like your
soul,
great spirit, or your God of your understanding. And so a lot of this work has to do with getting out of the way of your total consciousness, that we have a consciousness that is divided up, and we can move it into the unity. I think last week's was like that, about unity and concentration.
Yes.
So I liked, for me, the speaker put it very clearly about my subconscious. You know, we see that in our dreams and stuff, you know, that we have these needs and we're trying to fulfill them, but our conscious mind doesn't allow the connection to our superconscious, which keeps us in our belief that we're sick or dying or any of these things that we're healing now by understanding our consciousness.
Right. Yeah, and you know, again, that it's beautiful that we are stepping into this awareness of our conscious waking state. A lot of folks aren't even aware that their waking state is their conscious, and then we have the subconscious and the superconscious. And knowing this, that for the longest time we've allowed this conscious that wants to hold on to the me, the mortal I, not knowing, or it knowing, but for whatever mysterious purposes, is trying to keep you in this limited experience, opposed to being in allowing super consciousness to flow and be the all of your consciousness. And there's purpose for it, right? There's purpose, unfolding, learning, knowing. And I never know if you're raising your hand. Hello.
Definitely.
Okay.
Sorry.
But like you said, we could always discuss why, and never really get the same answer from each individual perception.
Right.
Of
Now my
why.
hand's up.
Yes.
So,
Were you done?
So there's no need for us to, but except for the part that we enjoy it as human beings, well, I think it's like this because that's why it's like this.
Yeah.
But here in this setting here, we're working on the unity, so we're following the sages of the ages, these teachings that show us that it's not so important why it's that way, it's that it doesn't have to be that way. You can choose.
Yes, and that is awesome. But it comes into us seeking and looking and searching, so that this intuition, this wisdom starts unfolding in us, so that we know we've got a choice. Because there are so many people. I mean, I hear it all. Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Well, with regards to this business of extrapolations and mental fields, two disciples of Buddha, I just heard this the other day, two disciples of Buddha were arguing about whether a dog had a soul. And the Buddha came by and listened for a while, and he said, whether or not a dog has a soul, it has no bearing on your liberation. It's a really good thing to remember sometimes.
Exactly.
Yes. So we've made some great comments. Hopefully someone's out there watching and listening and asking questions or responding. Do we feel like we've captured the essence of those methods of healing, at least those 3 different stages? And even with the doctors, today, most of them who are doing healing are really operating with love and faith, because we know the truth about healing. And so a lot of doctors either have a great love for their practice and what they do, whether it be for people or their practice, or they have great faith in their medicines that they're dishing out, right? And so even they are doing their healing, through faith.
Well, in the end, it's your body who fixes you up again.
Or we say your consciousness.
Or your consciousness.
In fact, because what it comes down to is, you'll notice, and I've experienced, I have friends who, or people I know who have believed their doctor's diagnosis. Let's just say a grim one. They've heard it and they received it, and they followed through with what the doctor said was going to happen to them 6 weeks later, 12 weeks later. Right?
It happened.
And it's happened. And it's happened the other way, where they've actually denied, the bad reports. So I'm speaking of not good reports from your doctor, terminal. And there's been those other ones who have said, no, I refuse to believe that. I refuse to give up. I believe that I am meant to do something, to live, to be here, no matter who it was for, their love of someone or something else, or their faith in someone or something else, or themselves, or God, or even the medicines, because that the doctor, because most people have great faith in the white jacket. By the way, I'm wearing my doctor's coat today. I want to let you guys all know that I have a prognosis for you. You're all rapidly becoming illumined, self-realized beings who are also capable of healing others quite rapidly, and that you have become illumined, healed, no ailments, everything is just perfectly swell and well for you right here and right now. And I am wearing the white jacket that gives me that authority to say such things.
By you saying that makes a whole difference, It's like when the person starts saying something positive, you feel the difference right there. Even
Yes.
if it's just like,
I wasn't joking, so, but yes.
Right, we could tell, actually, you weren't joking. I mean, if you were joking, it might not have had that effect, actually.
Exactly.
Right.
It's like, wow.
Yes.
That really works.
Yes, because it's our creative word, which is God's creative word. When we're speaking universal truth, even it doesn't appear to be the truth, but it is the truth, that it is effective in doing, the work. And that is something else too to speak about healing. One, to keep in mind is that we shouldn't be treating people mentally, argumentatively, intuitively, or even spiritually if someone hasn't specifically come to you and asked you, or presented their case to you in a way to where you have an opportunity to say, and you may even use it from this perspective, can I pray for you, right? For a lot of folks, that might be the way you enter in to that conversation, about this. But it's definitely the sages of the ages instruction is never, treat people who haven't asked. And definitely, yes.
There's this classic example that I think Carolyn Macy's, that this woman died in a car accident, left her body. The car behind her, the guy was cussing. She's floating in her soul. The car behind his car, she was praying for the dead woman. Someone that she didn't know and who hadn't asked to be prayed for. She memorized the license plate, and after she got out of hospital, this was in England where you could do this, looked her up and brought her some flowers. So here's an example, we're praying for someone who hasn't directly asked is okay. That's all.
Yes. Well, there you go. And, you really couldn't have, but you found yourself in such a situation, you listened, but the
Lord said pray for this
yes,
woman.
right. Well, that's it. And the number one thing you can definitely listen to is direct communication. I mean, those are those times when, we're definitely stepping out of, self. Should I not? You got that question. But when Spirit is motivating you, then you figure out a way that is somehow kind or direct. That person couldn't speak to say, yes, pray for me. So she listened to Spirit, or he listened to Spirit, whoever it was. And so those are those times. We should always be trying to be receptive. One of the things I say in the morning during my alone time is, Heavenly Father, speak to your son. I'm listening. I'm listening. Speak to your son. And just being open to hear
I
what.
think it's important now to speak of humbleness and no judgment. That, a lot of people have a strong belief system, which is like faith, that nothing can be done unless it's done this particular way. And then my belief is that we honor that we're not forcing our will into any situation, because our limited perspective from our corporal body here in this world only sees it from a perspective. The work that we're doing is being done by a power larger, or the power that includes everything. So there really is no, in my opinion, wrong that can be done. There's no judgment here.
Right. Right. And yeah, and there shouldn't be. And we've, I believe, gone over these in the previous lessons too. It's absolutely, it's one of the greatest things that we can do for people as they come into our experience and our awareness is not judging them. Or if we have judgment, let it be righteous judgment. Let me instantly say within myself, there's a Son of God. There's a Son of God.
Yeah,
There's a Son of God.
sometimes to silently be saying you are innocent.
Yeah.
Or like we say in AA, I'm an AA member, by the grace of God, there go I.
Yes. And I love grace. I love grace so much. It just, that word alone does, it's one of those words for me.
But they're concepts, I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
They're concepts that, everyone in their ego mind, the thing that we're most healing by sitting in group and discussing it. In the ego mind, we don't really, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. We don't really have a good perspective. That perspective needs to be ignored, and like we were talking about intuition or what have you, another guide come in to lead or teach. And it may be somebody you never expect. It may be somebody that you are judging that they have no message for you. But the message is there in all of us, every one of us.
Yes. I receive your message from the all that is you. I will say that in most examples of Christ Jesus healings, that he was asked. Now keep in mind, he wasn't always asked by the individual needing it, but a loved one also came unto him and would ask for their loved ones. So that's something to keep in mind. But once again, we listen to Spirit at the highest, so that we're never restricted or holding back. And also remember that to not allow doubt even within ourselves. Even if someone just tells you about somebody and they bring it into your awareness, not for that they're asking you to heal, not that they're asking for anything from you, but they're sharing with you an experience someone else is having about what's happening to them. One of the things that we can do that is not doing something against someone's will is just knowing within yourself, and that's that spiritual side of things, knowing who they really are at their highest. And there's nothing wrong with actually, in fact, one of the teachings that I remember Emma Curtis Hopkins taught me was, even if you hear reports of something has happened to someone or a family member, that you don't have to accept that. That you can deny that and say, no, I know that my family member is well. And you don't have to say that audibly to them. I'm just saying within your own self, your own belief, your own consciousness, I know the truth about this situation, and the truth is this and that. And that is also something to keep in our awareness. I want to talk a little bit about pre-existence. I don't want to talk too much about it, but I do at least want to read something that Annie wrote, because there can be, some people have a problem with this idea. A lot of the sages of the ages taught it. Even the Bible, actually, some of the Pharisees, I think, not that we should go off what the Pharisees said, but
Isn't it all over the Apocrypha?
yes, well, and that's it. And it is, so I'm just going to share with it, but we won't get too deep because I'll end with this. But this is Annie saying it. Pre-existence. God is without beginning and without end. Therefore, man, his image, is also without beginning and without end. Always you have been. You did not begin at the appearance called your birth in the flesh, being immortal. Your soul has existed throughout the ages and will forevermore. Pre-existence is a truth, but the suppositions which have been attached to it, such as reincarnation and evolution, are still open questions. It is sufficient for us to deal with the present fleshly problem. finishing all ignorance and misery in the body here and now, which we now have, and at this present moment, the here and now. So really, none of us can prove to each other, right, unless we believe someone's testimony or we experience it ourselves or brought into that awareness. And although I am convinced of pre-existence because of the wonderful way that Annie has put it, right? God is eternal. I don't even need to say it again. It was just said wonderfully. And so worrying about if I'm going to, when I transition or when I go from this form to another, see, it's really not, we don't need to talk about that because we're here now. We're here and now dealing with this form and this life here and now. Why not live it to the best of our ability and transcending, our ideas of who and what we are into the truth. So yeah, I wanted to say that. And hopefully, because anything outside of this is really hypothesis, is really just theories, right?
It doesn't have much bearing on your liberation.
Right. Again, perfect. It doesn't have anything to do with your liberation here and now in this life. So don't worry yourself about it. Don't think that you were, and another reason why it's not even worth really having the conversation, to each his own, so I'm not telling you not to do it.
Don't worry if you have dreams of your past life.
Yeah.
That's okay too.
Yes. But some people get in certain traditions, exactly, fear of the future, which we shouldn't have. Certain traditions teach it as karma and you are this and that's why you're experiencing this. We know here and now we can transcend any opposition we think we may be having or that we may be experiencing. We can transition that and overcome that and not have opposition here and now, has no matter what you believe in previous lives or your family history. Really, they fall in line, that idea of thinking, your heredity, your previous lives, they can all kind of fall into that. But we know the truth is that we are eternal and that our mother, father, God is good and that we inherit that, which all those other labels and attributes of goodness fall under. Anyone have a comment or a question? Or
I've heard it said that the part of eternity that we have in this world is the now.
say that one more time.
The part of eternity that we have in this world to show us is the now.
Yes, yes. So many times we should remind ourselves here and now, because if you're not in here and now, you are for sure probably imagining a future fear or problem or opposition or goodness too. I mean, don't let us just put those negatives on it. But most are having that fear experience because of thinking of the future. And definitely many people are holding on to past memories of not so good either. And so, in fact, we take ourselves there, mentally. And so to focus on the here and now, it's why it's so powerful. It's why we need to give ourselves these reminders. Find reminders to remind you about here and now. Find reminders to say everything is good right here, right now. I am joyful right here, right now. All is well here and now. And so thank you for reminding us about here and now. Yeah. And let us always remind ourselves. No, it'll be your right hand when you raise it.
Wait, no, we get to sing at the end?
Because you're here, we're hoping so. All right, so what time is it, by the way?
Right ahead.
Oh goodness, we're gonna do the fast track on this stuff. So we've covered. I want to talk about counterfeit laws, but you already know about that.
Counterfeit law.
Yeah, which are basically.
Oh, you mean like material law?
Yeah. All so-called laws of evil are the shadow of divine laws. When evil is acknowledged as a power and present, it seems to echo the spiritual law of inheritance. Good comes from good. With the delusion, evil comes from evil. This false law is annulled through the knowledge of the truth that evil has no life or intelligence, no creator, and no place in being. We already know, and kind of being in the here and now, and also knowing that there's only one power. So we've covered this, a lot of this, that there is only God, and so there is no evil power, and those are just shadows, which are nothing. Shadows are nothing. You know, it's nothing.
Fear when you turn the light on.
That's it. Yes. And who is the light? You are the light. Turn on. Turn on. Install one of those, so you don't even need a clapper. You know, back in the day, it was a clapper. You need someone to clap to illuminate you. Now, it's not even a touch. You can pre-program it. Turn on, stay on. So freedom from sensuality. I think this is a super important one. This was one for me that is very important for us to know. And I'm going to read Annie's here, then I'm going to give you a little sidebar of my own comments. So freedom from sensuality. Side by side with the understanding of the true law of our inheritance goes the understanding of the true law of our generation. God is the one creator, not earthly man or woman. Since you are not flesh, you are not created by the laws of flesh. Here we face the race error or mortal man, belief that he or she can create. The error which has been called the original sin, thinking that the flesh can generate and conceive. So, there is only one conception, immaculate conception, the manifestation and the conceiving of Jesus Christ, which is type of true origin of every child. At every conception, the Spirit of God moves upon the face of the deep. Each one is sent of God. So you are a spirit, eternally conceived of God and born of God, not in time, but in eternity. You have always lived and always will live. You were never born into materiality or time, and you will never die. Realization of this truth is that process spoken of in the scriptures as being born of spirit in John 3. And so getting into the false beliefs in fleshly and sensual gratification must be erased, is what Annie says. From the mind before, erased from the mind before their symbolic diseases can disappear. Speak the truth concerning real man. Your desires are spiritual and not carnal. All sensation is of the mind, of the spirit, and you do not look to the flesh for gratification. You are satisfied with God. One of the greatest things that I think that man on earth is battling with, right? They call it the original sin. And it's not, I want to.
Wait a minute, he just described it as the belief that flesh can come of flesh or the material.
Yes.
Created.
Well, then
That is a great sentence.
Yes. And this is the truth. And so something that I never associated with the desire of what we would call sensual pleasure. First of all, there's nothing wrong. I want to say there's nothing wrong with us speaking about this or with it. But those desires that we have associated with lust and passion are actually the desire, our call, our spirit's call for righteousness. We've associated because we've actually been told, if you truly go to origin of these feelings that you've had that arose in you from the earliest of age that you can remember, these feelings that rose over you and you told them, I'm feeling this and that, and then you were told it was lust and you were told it was this. But in fact, it is mislabeled. It is your desire and quest for righteousness of spiritual expression labeled improperly. And so this is not saying not to have sensual relationships with your loved ones. This is not saying that expression isn't here for us to have with our loved one. But what it's saying is that in fact, it is a call for God. It is a call for spiritual righteousness and applying that energy. That is a power and an energy pent up in us. And knowing to express that in love and having your ideas corrected, your error in thinking that I'm just lust and passion and it's really a different way to still have this power, to still express it with the one that you love. But knowing what that power and desire is It is your call for unity with spirit. It is love, it is grace, it is all those things expressing out from you to share with that one and not being lost in it being something else. This is a great healing for us to know, because many people are having these feelings and passions and the world has labeled them a certain way, and then they've said you're this or that because you have those. You're a this, or I don't even want to say the words, you're loose, you're men who blah blah blah, and they just don't know. They were never told, right? They were told, the world has told them, go fulfill, be with as many women as you can, be with as many men as you can, that passion, desire, be free, it's not. But that is spiritual power pent up building, and I hope I'm not going too far with this. I just want you to know that that we are not sinners. Even with Mary Magdalene and them wanting to stone, I think it was Mary Magdalene, it might have been someone else, where they were going to stone her for adultery and whatnot. And then Christ came and said, let he who is without sin cast the first stone, and they all dropped their stones and left. And then he said, who accuses you, woman? And there was no one there, and he says, and neither do I. And so it's just important to know that, here was Christ giving another example, that he's not convicting us, and in fact, he sees us as our sinless, free self, even from those passions. We've just been taught differently. We've been told to express them differently, and so that's a tough one for some people when they first hear it. It was tough for me at first because I misunderstood it for myself, and I've gotten more and more clarity about it for me. And so it'll be up unto every one of you to, figure that out. But a beautiful thing to know, to be told that those feelings and desires and energies are not some, terrible thing. That is really a great good within us, waiting to be shared.
Between consenting adults.
Between consenting adults, yes. Yeah, and knowing that I don't want to go too far, but just knowing that it is a special energy that we are doing. It is spirit uniting with spirit. It is, we're wanting to unite. We're wanting to come together. It's a great love, actually. So we just need to erase the error about what we thought it was and know what it is, right? That's why we can say, I love everyone and everything. And it's not a sexual, lustful thing. It's a true love that even that, letting that energy out. Yes, dear.
This is just a curious story I heard from this spiritual understanding. The judgment on sex came from when people who were not unconditionally in love with each other had union. It actually posed darkness on the planet, and people who could see saw the darkness and saw them cohabiting. But people who are unconditionally in love with each other pull all sorts of light on the planet with the act. And there's all sorts of lovely stories, and it is Kundalini. It's the energy that makes you want sex, is the one that comes up your spine and pierces the crown chakra, gets enlightened. I mean, it's all rolled in together. So there's an infinite amount of stories throughout cultures and teachings on how to deal with this.
Right, and that energy, as she just said, you can bring it in, knowing it's not just here that you need to, right, that you actually are pulling and drawing it through every wholeness of you.
Whole body.
My friend in the ashram, he said they really should talk about this. He has us meditating, cross-raising his thing. Apparently what would happen to the guys sometimes is they get erection. And then the energy would go from the head down and back and do the U-turn and up their spine.
Yeah.
And they feel the whole thing, but no one addressed it out loud. It's called the U-turn experience.
Yeah, and there had.
It's a good experience.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's a different way of using that energy, and they say that the proper way. once again, we know there's nothing wrong with coming together and being the vessels in which God brings consciousness into, in life, into this appearance. But there's so much to be done with this energy.
I think it's important to remember that, as we're trying to gain a spiritual consciousness or a knowing of ourself past this body that is eternal, that any attention that we pay to this body is distracting. And when they talk about sin, well, that's what they're talking about in a general sense. It's not real, but we believe that somehow there's something other than the spiritual body in connection with God or the universe, however you...
I like the definition I got, and it might have been from the course, of sin is the belief that there's any power in material.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So,
Wow,
as we talk about sex or our bodies, that there's power in the body that is what we consider positive or pleasurable, and also negative, which is painful. And the two of them really aren't that much different because they're of the body. So we have those experiences, but we don't really want to concentrate on them or make them anything more than what they are, a illusion of who we are. We're spirit, and that's the what we're reading these and sharing about these lessons of to get in touch with our spiritual self.
Yes. And we are doing that. At least I feel it. In my experience, it's happening.
So this all came up because Annie said something?
Yeah, this is her 7th lesson. This is in her lesson 7.
And exactly how is it?
Well, the heading for her is freedom from sensuality.
Oh, okay, thank you, yeah.
Yeah, so freedom from that. Yeah, yes. So the last heading, and I know we're late and I don't want to keep us, but I at least want to, because it's there, I want to read Annie's. It says, I think better language could probably be used, but feed the drunkard with right thoughts about his true self. And he will be so satisfied that no saloon can tempt him, and no liquor can longer have any charms. Never treat him as a drunkard by upbraiding or finding fault or with impatience or disrespect. Act always as though he were himself and address himself as one who is all-powerful to overcome. Recognize only the Christ in him. Then you can understand that inasmuch as ye have done it unto one of the least of these, my brethren, you have done it unto me.
Now, so if you have a child and you're having to teach them things and tell them, no, that isn't how you do that, but you still have to see them as whole. But if you have a friend who keeps doing things wrong, you just ain't supposed to say anything.
Well, are they asking you for anything? But if you're in their experience, if they're in your experience and you're in their experience, meaning that we're, we call it with each other.
Right in this movie.
Yes. Then you can, especially if your spirit is speaking to you, that you see the outpicturing of what we would call a drunkard, you can see the truth about them knowing that they're not a drunkard. That,
it's a great instruction.
yeah, that we see them as they truly are. That we see them as Christ here and now.
Don't upbraid men or don't this or that. So, but what if it's your husband and he's reaching for the bottle?
Then it's silent, because what will the audible experience happen? It will start a fight. It will create ego. Yeah.
Now I have a question. Is there a place in the Bible where Jesus showed up and the line goes, and they were all drunk? Or they were all asleep? I don't know where I heard this. There's
we
kind
can
of a
search and find
reference
out.
to people who aren't aware of their spirit or on the path, or they're drunk with materiality.
Well, we can say that for sure. Yeah, because this once again, this heading that she has created for us is about alcohol, but it's not just about alcohol. It's about all things that we would call vices or things that we've given power to. Because at the highest level is we've actually given power to it. You know, we've actually said that it is a power, and it's a power over me. Not even or some people use it as a power over other people, right? Take this and...
Well, yeah, or even the idea of giving your body power to create things that you don't want.
Or to get over, or say, I'm taking this to forget about this and forget about that. I've given it power when there should be nothing before God. And we know that God is our elixir of life, our happiness, our refreshment from the things that we claim are happening or think are appearing before us or are appearing before us. And so it works with all, yes.
Praise him from whom all blessings flow.
Yes.
Praise our Creator from here below. Except he's everywhere. Praise the one we love the most. Praise Father, Son, and Holy Ghost.
Beautiful. Thank you, sister. I am so blessed. We're blessed that you joined us today. Yeah, for real. So let us continually remember that the personal man can do nothing of himself, but God is the one that overcomes. Let God work in you and with you and through you, and let the personal step aside. And we can do that. We simply let go. You know, more and more, one of the greatest things about me and using the name Mr. X, which is really no name at all, or saying Minister X, it's letting go of the I and the association with the Dan or Daniel or Danny, and letting all that go and knowing that the true I is the only one that is, which is divine consciousness, which is God, which is deity, which is Christ consciousness speaking through this form that is the only one speaking. So that, again, we know that when I say I love everyone and everything, it is coming from my highest, my unity with the Father. The Father and I are one. All power is given unto me in heaven, which is my consciousness, and earth, which could be considered my body. And so the we are the power, and the we is the I, which is the one. So we get clarity on knowing that even when we're healing ourselves and others, it is really knowing and believing and having faith and accepting that God is working with me and through me and for us. You know, I say me and I mean all of us, to accomplish all that we are to accomplish, and for me to be in my perfect state of divine consciousness, cosmic consciousness. And so with that, we hit the practice, because I really don't like keeping you guys here on, you know, we might have schedules and things to do, but everything is in divine timing and order. So the practice, what is the practice? The following is a good order of proceeding in giving treatment. Remember, the speaking is all silent. 1, center yourself in spirit. Make sure that you get grounded really quick. You might have had a day yourself, but you can do it really quick. We do it here probably quicker than a lot of places when I say, let's get centered in spirit. Let's be calm. Let's breathe, say a few words and get us centered. Mentally address the patient by name. You know, so their first and last name, picture them within the eye of your mind. Apply yourself to reassure him, and this is him or her, mentally, that there is nothing to fear. Tell him the truth about God and himself. Number 5, make such denials and affirmations as are appropriate to the case. In a 6-day course of treatment, first day you deny the belief in any evil inheritance and the reality and power of sensual desires and carnal appetites, and you affirm the truth about the divine inheritance and the pure and holy origin and desires. 6, close with invoking a benediction upon yourself, the patient, and your word of truth. Thus, so shall my word be that goes forth out of my mouth it shall not return unto me void, but it shall accomplish that which I please, and it shall prosper in the thing whereunto I sent it. And that's Isaiah 55:11. And so here is a wonderful formula. Now, I will say that this is a great way to do it as you grow and expand in your practice for yourself. You may create, still very similar, but you may have a 2-step process, a 3-step process, a 1-step process. And depending on how you're approaching, from argumentative to intuitive to spiritual. But these are tools, and the tools are truth. Our medicine is truth. And it's thinking the truth, that's speaking the truth, and that's living the truth. And so by doing those things, and we write the truth, right? And so these are the tools that we have. And are there any other questions? Any questions out online? Please post them, ask them. Any comment or question is welcomed. Here, is there any last words? Even though this is eternity, so it's never really ending. It's never really started. But
Ain't it the truth? Ain't it the truth?
Anyone have any rock? No? Anna? Brother Ben?
I'm just learning.
Yeah, it's okay. It's all right. Yeah. Sister Uma?
So, is that available? I mean, Randall just hooked you up on his Facebook. Can you look this up?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, he can go to Home of Truth. It's on the Home of Truth
Not
Facebook
yours.
page.
It's on Home of Truth.
I also share it on mine, so it should be in my timeline. But the Home of Truth, for sure, will have it under videos.
Okay.
So they don't have to scroll through the timeline to look for them.
Great.
So anyone watching, you can go to the Home of Truth Facebook page that you're watching on now, or if you're watching somewhere else, you can go to Home of Truth and go to videos, and you can see all the lessons that we've recorded together. I want to close with a quick prayer. Does anyone want to lead us in this prayer? I don't have to be the one. Sister Uma, would you honor us?
Can we
Yes.
make a circuit? Oh, thank you, dear Mother, Father, God, all goodness, all love, all presence everywhere. For these lovely individuations of individual people, souls here who have come into the circle with the spark of light in each of their chests and the radiance around each of their heads and the deep grounding through each of their feet as they bring understanding of the Christ and the truth to this earth for your glory. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. Good. Yes. Thank you, guys. Yes. Thank you. Thank all. And right back at you. It's a,